A new learning partnership between the City of Hamilton and a consortium of Nordic organizations is encouraging further discussion on the city's housing agenda through a series of workshops hosted here in Hamilton. And joining me to talk about this partnership and what will be focused on during these upcoming workshops is Director of Economic Development, Glen Norton. Welcome back to City Matters.
Thanks, Doug. Always a pleasure.
Good to see you. Last time you were here, you were building permits in 2017. How's it looking?
Very good.
Yeah?
2018 is going to be another very good year.
We're trending. Okay, and I'll try and, get some of those actual deals out here on City Matters. He'll reveal everything to me. Look, this is a neat idea. The city partnering with Nordic countries, but I have to wonder, our viewers may not know, how did this relationship begin?
So it started with the Danish embassy taking note of us when we had that two-day event down in Toronto called the Hamilton Consulate. And if you recall, that works.
What a brash idea.
It was brash, and it got us international publicity. And it showed that we're willing to do things a little bit differently. And we're open to collaboration. As I said many times, we weren't there to steal Toronto businesses. We were there to look for collaboration and partnerships. So when this opportunity came up, this is something that hasn't really been done outside of Europe before. It's been done in India once, but really not outside of Europe. They were looking for a Canadian city that they could partner with to do this. And because of the consulate, they thought of us and said, gee, Hamilton sounds like a city that might be open to something a little bit different. Let's give them a call.
So was it the Danish consulate that went to the Hamilton consulate and walked around with a little goodie bag of stuff you may have given away that day? And they called you out of the blue.
Yeah, they did. They called me out of the blue and said, would this be of interest to you? And I said, absolutely. Affordable housing, affordable, sustainable, accessible housing is a real big concern of ours. So absolutely. If you got something you want to show us, you want to put in some effort to help us, give us some fresh ideas, come on over.
So it is a consortium, so the Danish government obviously is involved, but I'm thinking there's a bunch of Scandinavian countries who have an interest in this?
There's 5 Nordic countries that go together, and they each put some money into this fund. And it's an innovation fund, and it will, people can then apply to it.
So from Finland to Iceland, including Norway, Sweden, Denmark.
You got it.
Perfect.
Those are the 5. So organizations, professional organizations and firms within those 5 countries can apply to that fund and say, I've got a project, I have an idea, will you fund it? So that's the Danish embassy had contacted this particular group, Quercus Group and Climate KIC, 2 of the biggest firms in Europe that do this type of work. And so they submitted an application for funding. They were successful. We worked on them with the application form. And so they're saying, okay, so now we're coming. We have the money. All you need to do is line us up with the right people and spend some time organizing this for us, and we will be here in May for 2 days, 2 full days.
So it's an education for us without any cost to the City of Hamilton, and it's business opportunity for this consortium, which leads me to think that there's business opportunity here for companies in Greater Hamilton partnering with the consortium.
Doug, you're absolutely right. That's what we hope will happen, is that if a company is making a new product, and let's call it a special type of furnace that produces heat cheaper than any other type of furnace, I got to think that they would want a Canadian distributor for that. If it works here, and this will be their beta test for North America, yes, it works. Well, who more is a natural agent to sell that through North America than a Hamilton firm who's actually seen it work? Same as the architects in terms of looking for Canadian partners. So we will have the architects of Hamilton there as well. And so we think there's some really good potential for partnerships coming out of this and some business that's two-way. I mean, also, I think Hamilton companies should be looking at doing something similar back in those Nordic countries.
Some definite synergies. I know we have some pictures. Now, these are from a northern Danish city that was formerly heavily industrial, Aalborg, and there's a picture of the industrial area that they are basically reclaiming and turning into, and I'm going, oh my, isn't this what we're doing in Hamilton? We have brownfields that we want to regenerate, and are they potential affordable housing options for us? Yeah, and you mentioned off the top, these are innovative practices that this consortium is currently conducting, and who just opened up something at the Innovation Factory, you know, McMaster Innovation Park.
Fraunhofer.
$33 million
Yep.
investment involved there, and other opportunities. And we heard today from St. Joe's about a wonderful idea of development around arthritis research at St.
Yep.
Joe's. So these are the things you and I have talked about before, that they're percolating. There are several more new Altborg. So wonderful pictures. So they're going to come and help us think outside of the box, because
Exactly.
I take it some of these Scandinavian countries, when it comes to this issue, which again, we've latched on to affordable housing in this last term of office and are doing some very serious things. But the Scandinavians usually are ahead of us.
Exactly.
And we can learn from
they're ahead
them.
of us in sustainability as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is about climate change and environmental.
Yes.
We have the same sort of harsh winters that they do, and how do you allow for that? You know, it adds to the cost of providing affordable housing. Accessibility. So they helped us, they asked us, what is the problem that you would like us to work on? We look for challenges, and then we bring in the appropriate people, and they have this open innovation type of process that says normally research and innovation is done off to the side, and when somebody's happy with the result, they bring it out and commercialize it. This is the opposite of that. This is saying, let's get everybody in the room on a focus group who has part of this issue and may have part of the solution, and work from there. So it happens very quick on the first day. They have that open session with everybody contributing what the challenge is, what their idea is. That group goes away and works through the night, and on the next day back, they're proposing solutions. So it's a very compressed thing. It is a charrette, that it's meant to be high pressure, very low time, to keep everybody focused on the issue. There is no, well, we'll go away and come back in a month and then another month. This is, boom, they're in, working flat out for 2 days with us.
How many folks would be coming from the consortium, and how many people in Hamilton would be welcome to go and get into these workshops?
So the number coming hasn't been determined exactly. It'd be between 10 and 20, seeing who takes up the challenge. I mean, these companies who want to get into the challenge have to pay their own way. They're pretty sure it'll be between 10 and 20. And the ideal group size that we're thinking about, so that we don't lose the individual contributions, is around 150 people. And in there, we want all the affordable housing providers that are currently here. We want architects, we want developers, we want home builders, Social Planning Research Council, Chamber of Commerce, all those who have some stake or something to add a small piece to the puzzle. And so when we're done, we have something that can actually happen. And they are actually looking for a site. They've asked us to propose a site that they could work with, so we're talking in real terms.
I would think the building trades would want to be involved as well.
Absolutely.
All right, that sounds cool. And that's coming in May. Do you have dates yet in May?
We're just finalizing it. It looks like it's going to be either 9/10 or 10/11,
Okay.
depending on the rooms, the hotels, and the rooms to meet. But that's where we're zeroing in on right now.
Great opportunity to come up with some ideas and some synergies and sustainable, affordable housing ideas. You were before GIC today. There were all kinds of presentations. I presume GIC is still going. But you were presenting on the Economic Development Action Plan. We're into, what, year 2 of the action plan?
We just finished year 2.
Just finished
2017
year 2,
was
so
year
you're
2.
reporting on it.
Yep.
And I went through it, and I'm going, okay, these were some of the goals and targets that you wanted to start to develop in Hamilton, and I've put arrows where, looks like we've got some momentum, adding 7 million square feet of new industrial and commercial space. You're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, we feel that we're on track to do that, which is considerably more than we've ever done before. But that was the point of setting a stretch target. Don't give yourself a target in anything you do that you're comfortable and you know how you're going to get there. How do you get superior results if you do that?
For our viewers, what's a stretch target?
So a stretch target is one that when you set it, you don't know how you're going to get there.
Okay.
It is beyond what if
With
you
our
had,
Scandinavian friends, that's how we're going to get there.
well, there's a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
ways, right? It challenges staff to think outside the status quo. How can you do something different? You know, in the past 5 years, we did 6.3 million square feet, and that included two very big developments, as you know, Canada Bread and Maple Leaf Foods. So how do we grow that to 7 million square feet in the next 5 without those two big projects? So, you know, it makes the staff think about what would I do? And it makes us more open, I think, to working with companies and being more aggressive in our selling of the city, both locally, retaining businesses, and internationally attracting new business.
Another stretch target was to increase Hamilton's shovel-ready land supply by 500 acres, and to do that over a time period.
Yep.
And I'm thinking in my head that the greatest potential for shovel-ready is Aerotropolis lands, and of course the newly opened up, as of last April, Stelco lands, and other lands around the city. But
yeah,
is
Stelco,
that where the greatest potential is to develop these 500 acres?
Stelco has great potential, but right now we can't count on it because
Yes.
it's still in the hands of the receiver.
Yes.
And we're not quite sure what the province's intention is yet in the receivers. So I'm not
We have
counting
no
on it.
idea who will be the leader on June the 8th.
That's true. We're trying to achieve our target without having to rely on the Stelco lands.
Okay.
So as you said, we have numerous industrial parks already. We have Red Hill, we have Ancaster, a brand new one now in Flamborough. So we're working with those property owners to say, how can we get it to shovel ready? I mean, there's a process. There's a difference between having just a piece of land that 3 years down the road can be industrial and to have it ready now. So how can we convince you to make the investment for the environmental assessment, the roads, the sewer, the water, the power, so that when somebody comes knocking on our door, which often happens, and says, oh, I need to have a 100,000 square foot plant open, but I've got 9 months to do it. You have to have a site ready to go if you're going to do that. There's just no other way. Even 9 months would be very tough to get a building permit and build. So you have to have shovel-ready lands, and we don't have enough. We have too much that's raw. So we as the city have also stepped in. We've purchased 44 acres of raw land, and we're in the process of putting servicing to it. So if somebody comes along that needs a big piece, 44 acres is a big piece of land, we've got one.
And I'm sure it became very obvious as the city was putting together the Amazon bid that this would be a major, this would be like a Toyota plant, this would be like a Honda going to Allinston. You've got to be ready if you're going to attract those big boys to come and set up shop in Hamilton. One of the other stretch targets, triple the municipal tax assessment generated from the Stelco lands. I should only bring that up with Mike Zagaric, right? Mike had to report as financial officer for the city. He had to report in the fall that, in fact, we've lost money on the Stelco lands.
Impact reassessed it.
Yeah.
They wrote it down from $100,000 an acre, which made sense, to $100 an acre, which makes no sense. So the municipal tax contribution has fallen like a rock out of that. That works really hard against us. It negates most of what we achieved by bringing in other companies over the course of a year.
Do you want me to rip this page out of the report? Because
as you've seen, I told council the chances of being able to achieve that target now are essentially nil.
Yes. Reducing Hamilton's office vacancy rate to 7%. Now, I've been around long enough to know we had some horrific numbers.
19% at the worst of it.
Yeah, around what, 2007, 2008?
Yep.
Downtown was like a ghost town. Reducing it to 7%. So have we reached it? Are we surpassing it?
No,
Getting
so that was
close?
another one that's not on target.
Yeah.
So two things are working against us. So one is that as new property gets leased up, or existing property gets leased up, other people who weren't trying to lease and haven't done any renovation say, you know what, I should get my property ready. So they do some of the leasehold improvements, they replace the windows, and then they put it on the market. So we've actually grown the supply over the last few years. The other sort of trend that's emerging is that in an office setting, more and more people have the opportunity to work from home. So a company can shrink the number of people it has in an office, and it's also shrinking the space each employee gets. If you think about the cubicles versus individual offices now, cubicles is pretty much it, and they've gotten quite small. Your desk is bigger than what one person would have in a modern office right now.
And I've noticed the trend is really showing up with realty offices. where much of the work can be done from home, much of the work is done on the road, much of the work of
come in for
taking
an
pictures
hour.
is done from
Yeah.
a drone, for goodness sake. So that business has changed dramatically.
It's called hoteling, and it's just you come in with your laptop and
Yeah.
you plug into an available desk and you work there for an hour, you get updated, you download, you do what you need to do, you check in with your boss, and then you're back out again. So those two trends are working against us. The reason I picked 7% was that's normally the reinvestment rate. When the marketplace, those who are in the business, observe that you're at 7, they'd go, I need to get building now because there's a real good opportunity coming up. There's going to be a tight market for office, and I need to get something built so that I can capitalize on it. At 13%, nobody's really building new. At most, they're fixing up and cleaning up what they already have and saying, oh, I got a shot at getting at least. And so it's a surplus situation in Hamilton. That's why the rates are so good, and why I'm still hoping that we can attract some fairly major players and say, you can move outside of, let's just say Toronto, but other major areas, and save 50% on your rent.
Since we're, and my poor little brain doesn't always connect all the dots, but since we're trending again this year, obviously we're still a hot marketplace. The real estate isn't as hot as it has been for the past 2 years, but developers are looking at us and condo builders are looking at us. And as they continue to look at us, and as people continue to come to Hamilton and boost our population, is that not a good thing to throw against the 13%? Does it add up that you can decrease that 13% as we bring more businesses to Hamilton?
That's how it should work, right?
Yeah.
Those businesses need a place to go.
So my brain isn't that simple?
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay,
It's a very simple equation, but they need less space than they used to. And and sometimes the firms that we're attracting, for good reason, are more the industrial type of client.
Mm-hmm. And you're trying to fill those business parks. And
Oh,
that was
absolutely.
another target, and
Yes.
that seems to be also ticking upwards.
It's ticking upward.
Especially when you have a company like Stryker who does even greater investment.
Great success story that they chose to stay in Hamilton. They could have gone anywhere, but their employees said, we like living and working in Hamilton. We'd like you to stay here. So fortunately, there was a developer with some land in Flamborough who said, I could accommodate you. City, you'll need to work with me to get it ready in a hurry, which we did, and they'll be moving in August of this year, and it's a very large expansion to what they occupied before. So a lot of what my group does is try and retain those businesses when they come to one of those critical points in the company's lifespan that says, we need to expand, we need more space. We want to be there to say, you don't need to leave. You don't need to go further west. We can keep you right here, and here's how.
Like Navistar.
Yeah. Navistar actually moved out of Burlington. And just, again, they didn't have the space for them.
Yeah.
And there's something that we have that is very attractive to companies in the distribution business, and they were a parts distribution warehouse, and that is our access to the highways and the U.S. border. You know, Hamilton has a lot going for it just in terms of our physical geographic location at the nexus of all these different types of transportation modes.
Now, this may be where I'm able to squeeze some new information and breaking news out of you, because as part of your targets, add the following new major economic development assets. Now, your film industry folks were here just last week talking about a booming business, and we all know about, what's his name? I can't remember. Giuseppe Del Toro?
Well, Guillermo Del Toro.
So one of the developing economic development assets, major film studio. Not achieved yet.
Yep.
Can you whisper into a camera how far along we might be in discussions? Anything percolating there, Glenn?
Certainly there are some things percolating. we continue to have discussions, but until there's a signature on a document somewhere, you can't count on it. And you know, I certainly couldn't reveal the areas that we're talking about, because what we don't want to do is stimulate any sort of speculation, and then it doesn't happen.
I'm just being bad.
Yeah, I know. We do have a studio who is in the process of signing a lease. They're not the big asset that we're talking about, but it's still a fairly decent-sized studio that is expanding from Toronto, and they're just, I can't tell you about it because they just haven't signed the lease yet, but we're confident they will.
But there are smaller companies who are setting up production in Hamilton, And everybody knows about Murdoch Mysteries, but
Yeah.
we are a hot spot for
We're a
filming and locations, etc. And studios are setting up in, say, the cotton factory or the knitting mills, etc., etc.
So they're small. What we need
Yeah.
is we need a big soundstage. We need one big
Yes.
soundstage, and we don't have that yet. And that will bring a lot of work to us. Toronto is so busy; they're booked up for 3 years out.
Wow.
So that's why they're looking to not just Hamilton, but other surrounding communities. We are in competition with every other community surrounding Toronto, and we know that. So
Yeah.
we have to be on top of our game to land it.
You were looking for a data center, and that was achieved.
So one, that's correct. Crypto Global opened, you may have seen the story, just over Christmas. They're specific to the fintech industry. So as I told council, even though I'm showing it's achieved, because we did, what I had intended when we made that target was a data center that is available to all types of business. So we're still keeping on. Thank you, Crypto Global, for being here, and we're working with them on an expansion plan, but we're still going to look for another data center that any business who has a need for big data could access. Crypto Global is very much dedicated to the fintech industry.
An 800 to 1,200 seat multi-use performance center.
Yeah, so the analysis that was done through Tourism and Culture was that there was a missing sort of step in the ladder of size of venues, and that was the size that was missing. So a happy discovery was that there actually is a venue that size, and it's called the Keith McIntyre Performing Arts Center up at Mohawk. They just haven't had a really outwardly facing marketing program before, and there's some things in terms of its physical footprint. It's a sloped floor, no place to put your drink, things rolling down, that they are working on.
That's important, you know.
Well, it is. you know, those amenities. I'm talking soda, and water that you'd purchase at intermission. So we're working with them to say, how can we help you market that asset? And at the same time, we're working with a church group downtown who own that beautiful big church in McNabb.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah. So we continue to work with the Reverend Ian Sloan and his congregation. They very much see a wonderful sort of synergy between continuing to do the good work they do out of that, and yet have as a revenue source to support that community work a music hall venue. And they could have an 1,100 seat venue in there. It's, in my view, it's Hamilton's Massey Hall. If you've been inside there. It's an absolute gorgeous building. The acoustics are wonderful. So we as a department and our colleagues in tourism and culture are supporting them and looking for ways they can make that real.
Excellent, because the Reverend Ian was here to talk about the vision that they had and the musical events that had already been there, but they knew there had to be upgrades if it was going to work. One of the other interesting things that you had as a stretch target, have 10 local companies on Canadian Business Magazine's fastest growing businesses list. You're on your way.
There's 4,
You
as you
achieved
see.
4, yeah.
Yeah.
And
we
really,
think
they achieved.
They achieved, not
Yeah,
us. Yeah. Do credit to them. So it is an application process, and you have to produce the financial statements to show, and it's based on revenue growth.
But it is based on the amenities that the City of Hamilton provides for companies to allow them.
We'd certainly like to
take
think
the
we're
shot.
supportive of it.
Yeah.
We don't want to take anything away from what they've accomplished. What we're saying is we think that if we work with other companies who may not realize what are the benefits of being recognized on that list, it helps you when you're attracting employees, which is tough. It helps you when you're attracting venture capital. It attracts you when you go to your bank, helps you when you go to your bank. So we're forming our own little competition locally called Fast 40. And that Fast 40 will be how we go through the companies and identify those who we think have a good shot at being on the national list.
Top 7 intelligent communities.
Achieved. And
Hamilton,
we're going for number
Ontario,
1 now.
right there in the top 7. I know
top
the mayor
7.
and Chris Murray are very proud of that fact.
Rightly so, they
but
are.
we achieved.
And we're now trying for number 1.
Yes.
The committee that makes the evaluation from the forum will be here the first week in April. So my staff and others, community partners, are taking them around to show them what we're doing, and so they can experience it on the ground and can talk to those people that are making it happen. And we'll find out sometime after the first week in April whether we are going to be picked as the top 1 for 2018. That'd be a real feather in our cap, let me tell you.
Last week, again, we talked with the city about how we've been recognized for some of the best festivals in Ontario. We also want to be the city of music. Juno's didn't happen this year. They ended up going to London, but the city had set aside money to go for the Junos, which you have applied to going for Country Music Week.
Country Music Week is coming. That's been obtained.
Achieved.
Yep. So
but
I
the
know
goal was 5 major events like the Junos that generate a total combined economic impact of at least $50 million. So we're on our way?
We're on our way. So we have 2.
Yeah.
And if you and the target is 5. So we're saying after 2 years, you got 2, you're right on track. We just need to keep closing that. And I suspect, as you do, that in the next 3 years, you'll see the Junos come back. I think they really, really like Hamilton as a city to host it. Hamilton citizens really get behind the event. They really get involved, which is important. But we're also, of course...
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. What we should also throw into this mix is sporting events.
I was just going to say.
Because Hamilton Golf and Country has already had the members vote that the Canadian Open will be coming back. And I'm not sure where it's scheduled for next year, but maybe it's next year. I
don't know either. I know they held the vote, and so that would be one. Don't you think that with the new field we have, that we should be getting a Grey Cup in that time frame? I think they're just waiting until some of the legal lawsuits and things are settled, but I think we could fairly confidently say we're going to be getting a Grey Cup in the next little while. Those are exactly the type of things, Doug, that they have the economic spin-off because you get people coming in from out of town, they stay in a hotel, they buy meals, they buy tickets, and they decide to stay or come back to Hamilton on another visit because they had such a good time.
We had a good lengthy conversation. There were still many more things to ask you, but we'll save them for another day. It doesn't have to be rainy.
I'll come back.
All right. Glen
Thanks,
Norton, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Up next, we meet a couple of eco-ninjas working to help our school board improve the environment.
AJ,